Alright folks, this is Harris Sultan, and you would have heard of the terrorist attack that just took place in Moscow, and according to reports so far, some 60 people have died and over 100 people injured. And as usual, instead of telling the truth, our dearly beloved Islamist propagandists are trying to use this tragedy to their full advantage. And since they hate Israel and the West, they are busy spreading rumors that Israel's Mossad was behind this terrorist attack. How ludicrous is this when ISIS itself has accepted responsibility for the attack? Russian police have released the images of the suspects behind the terrorist attack, but Putin is actually stuck between a rock and a hard place. He has to decide whether to go after the real culprits, i.e. ISIS, or use this tragedy and further fool the gullible, useful idiots of the West against the West itself. You'd be thinking, why wouldn't Putin go after the real culprits, i.e. ISIS? Really? Have you not seen what's been happening to Russia and Ukraine? The mighty Russian army has become the second best army in Ukraine. Yes, they have made some gains in recent months, but after all this hoo-ha, after losing 250,000 Russian soldiers, after almost having a civil war in Russia, after almost being overthrown in Russia by Yevgeny Prigozhin, Russia has only managed to capture 18% of Ukrainian territory. And that is also because we have these useful idiots in the West who are delaying this much needed $60 billion aid to Ukraine. The moment that is approved, which is just a matter of time because most congressmen, most Republicans, most Democrats are actually pro-Ukraine. So it's only a matter of time when this aid is approved and we give ATACMS and we give more weaponry to Ukrainians, and then the party's over for Putin. So anyways, Russia cannot go after the real culprits, i.e. ISIS, because it simply is not capable of opening another front against an enemy as ruthless as ISIS. So what's the second best option for Putin? We know Putin has bot farms where it pumps out anti-West, anti-democracy propaganda day in, day out, and it's working. Russia is behind one of the most formidable psyops, and we have useful idiots living in the West who glamorize Putin, who is one of the worst dictators going around at the moment. He just won 87% of the votes after killing, imprisoning and exiling his opposition. And yes, that's the guy our useful idiots in the West admire. And that didn't happen by accident. Putin knows that the West has free speech, so why not use it against the West? And Putin uses it better than any other country on earth. China is nowhere near as good as Russia when it comes to exploiting the West's own free speech against its own people, against its own values. So I have a feeling that since he can't go after ISIS because he's getting his ass handed to him in Ukraine, Putin is going to put this on Ukraine and then attack the West. But that would be a barefaced lie. And that's not something that he hasn't done before, is it? But on what grounds our dearly beloved Islamists are blaming Israel and the US? I'm going to tell you, but before we go further, like, share and subscribe to the channel. And if you would like to support me and encourage me to make awesome videos like these, then you can be my patron by going to patreon.com/HarrisSultan, or you can simply buy me a coffee. I know it says buy me a coffee, but you can buy me many coffees if you want. So let's get to today's video. So other than all these pro-Russian hacks, anti-West and Islamist propagandists are also spreading this rumor that somehow the US and Israel are behind this terrorist attack on Moscow. Yes, it's absolutely ridiculous, because if you want to hurt Russia, then why would you have a terrorist attack which would actually unite a severely fractured Russian society? The best way to hurt Russia is to arm Ukraine, is to give them the Iron Dome, is to give them some other missiles. That's the best way to hurt Russia. But Islamist propagandists are not interested in the truth. They want to use every opportunity they can to malign Israel and hurt Western interests. For example, to support their case, they are showing this terror alert that was issued by the US government on the 7th of March. That terror alert said that just be mindful, there could be a terrorist attack within the next 48 hours. They are excluding this part, that this terror alert was issued on the 7th of March, nearly 2 weeks ago. By that logic, the US intelligence got this wrong by nearly 12 days. They are trying to cast doubts by saying that, is it just a coincidence? Well, that's what intelligence agencies all around the world do. It's like if your doctor tells you that, hey, you've got cancer, you're going to die in the next 6 months' time, and then you actually die in 5 months' time, or 7 months' time, or even 6 months' time. You say, aha, my doctor killed me. No! That's what we call an expert opinion. But again, as I said, these Islamist propagandists are not interested in telling the truth. They are interested in spreading propaganda. Any propaganda that makes the West and Israel look bad, it works for them. Let's get to their second piece of evidence. I remember as if it were yesterday. So Islamist propagandists are saying, look at this Israeli guy. He is warning that Russia will pay a price.
That I understand you're under Russian payroll, and I understand this is a Russian propaganda, but you have to be very careful, because let me tell you, we're going to finish this war. We're going to win because we're stronger. After this, Russia will pay the price. Believe me, Russia will pay the price. Russia is supporting the enemies of Israel. Russia is supporting Nazi people who want to commit genocide on us, and just Russia will pay the price.
So let me give you a bit of context. As I said, Islamist propagandists are not interested in the truth. They are only interested in spreading propaganda. So a few months prior to that, Ukraine was begging Israel for its Iron Dome technology because Russia was deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure like electricity and water treatment plants, etc. in Ukraine, just to break the will of the Ukrainian people. Just like the West has always stood by Israel, just like that, the West was standing by Ukraine. So you would assume that Israel would also stand by Ukraine just because it's a Western ally and also it's a fellow democracy. But Israel was warned by Russia that it would face severe consequences or it would hurt the bilateral relations, etc. So Israel chose to sit that one out. And I remember I hated Israel for not standing by Ukraine because I believe that the world's democracies should stand by each other. That's our strength. The free world must stand against the authoritarian world like China, Russia, and North Korea, Iran, etc. So a few months later, October 7 happens and Russia allies itself with Palestine because Russia has to oppose the West. That's just the way it is. So that angered Israel a lot. Remember that so-called Israeli airstrike on a Palestinian hospital that turned out to be Palestinians' own rocket that fell in a parking lot and only a few people died. Yet the Islamist propaganda said, oh, nearly 800 people died. Yes, around that time, Russia was busy spreading this disinformation that, oh, Israel has done this. I think that was around the time when we first heard these calls of genocide. So this Israeli spokesperson was extremely angry with Russia because they had chosen not to support Ukraine despite pressure from the West. But then when push came to shove, Russia allied with Hamas. So that's why this guy was so angry. But Islamist propagandists are using it to show that, oh, look at this Israeli guy. He actually said it, that Russia will pay a price. What he meant by that, how I interpreted that, obviously you would interpret it as, hey man, we tried to stay neutral despite pressure from our allies, but when push came to shove, you sided with our enemies. And that's what he said. So once this war is over, we're going to give weapons and ammunition to Ukraine. When I heard it, I absolutely loved it. I was like, yep, I can't wait for this Gaza war to end so Israel can help Ukraine. And I'm still waiting for it. And also I was like, that serves you well, Israel. How about that now? You can't trust Putin. You can never trust a dictator. And it baffles me that how so many useful idiots in the West, they are so deluded in their contrarianism that they even worship Putin. Putin is a mad dictator. The guy is a mad dictator. Go to Russia and speak against Putin and find out. So anyway, so that was the context. And Islamist propagandists are obviously not interested in the context. They are only interested in spreading their propaganda. And hence they are insinuating that the US knew about it. Israel knew about it. The Israeli guy clearly said it on TV. Therefore, Israel's behind it. Anyone can make conspiracy theories. You know how easy it is? Let me create one on the spot. How about I say that Putin himself did this. Why did he do it? Well, because he's not really winning in Ukraine. We already know a lot of Russian people are sick and tired of this war. Nearly 200 to 250,000 Russian soldiers or men have died, and obviously that is not good for the families. Obviously there's unrest brewing beneath the surface. Putin has already dodged an overthrow attempt by Yevgeny Prigozhin. What about the next one? Would he be able to dodge another one? Or another one after that? So if I'm Putin, what should I do to unite these divided people? What about a good old terrorist attack? Because we know from history that whenever there's a terrorist attack, it unites people. We saw that post 9/11. We saw that post October 7 in Israel. And let's have one of our own October 7. How about that? How's that for a conspiracy theory? Didn't like it? Okay, let me give you another one. How about we say that China did it? Why would China do it, Harris? Well, because we know that China wants to annex Taiwan. But due to United States' strategic ambiguity, China doesn't know. So China can't take that risk. So how about we distract the West? The West is already distracted with the war in Gaza, with the war in Ukraine. Just start one more conflict that would totally render the West useless. And that would pave the way for me to attacking Taiwan. Problem solved. How's that for a conspiracy theory? I can go on and on and on. But the truth is that people manufacture facts according to what pleases their emotions in the moment. If you're an Islamist, you obviously hate Israel. And then by extension, you hate every country that supports Israel. So you would only look at the facts that make Israel and the West look bad. That's as simple as that. If you are just a contrarian, then you would just oppose anything that your government says. Or if you are an Alex Jones kind of conspiracy theorist, then you would always look for things that would make your government look bad. Now, I'm not saying that the US government and our governments don't do shady things. Of course, they do it all the time. History is full of it. Our baseline can never be built on top of circumstantial evidence, because if we go by that, then as I showed you, you can think anyone could be behind this attack. It could be Putin himself, it could be ISIS, it could be Mossad, it could be the US, it could be China, and a million other possibilities, all depending on how you feel about those countries. So our benchmark should always be what's available to us as evidence. And right now, the only evidence is that ISIS is a rogue terrorist organization. It is severely hurt by Russia and even the US, and therefore it's not surprising to me that it would go after Russia. And more importantly, they themselves have taken responsibility for it. So if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, then it's ISIS. So I hope you liked today's video. If you'd like me to continue making awesome videos like these, then you can be my patron by going to patreon.com/Harris Sultan, or you can simply buy me a coffee. Until next time, ta-da. If you'd like to support my work, you can become my patron by going to patreon.com/Harris Sultan, or you can simply buy me a coffee.